Hey, podcast listening people, welcome to another episode of the B2B Mentors podcast. I can't wait for you to listen into our guest today. So make sure, and by the way, this is free to you. So wherever you're tuning in, make sure you share, subscribe. If not only for you, I guarantee you there's someone else in your network who's going to get great value out of this. You can either watch the show, you can listen on the go, wherever you like. And today we're going to get very specific in our topic around healthcare marketing, which I have brought in the 20-year expert to talk about that, to dive into it. And even though, we're talking healthcare marketing, the beautiful thing about marketing, business development, branding, leadership, mentorship is a lot of the same principles apply across the board. And so, with me, this guy over here next to me with the amazing, I'll just call him out, the awesome Pearl Jam posters behind him, which, personally, I haven't listened to a lot of Pearl Jam, but the art's cool. So I may have to go to Spotify later and actually go check out some Pearl Jam. Larry Kaiser, 18-year veteran of the healthcare IT market, a speaker, current chief marketing officer at Clearsense, and winner of the 2020 HITMC Award for Health IT Marketer of the Year. Prior, Kaiser Larry has built and led the marketing function at Optimum Healthcare IT, led NTT Data's healthcare marketing efforts, and I'm sure has been directly driving, if not 8 figures, possibly 9 figures of revenue over your years, in this business. Yeah. So welcome, my friend. Great to have you here. And
thanks, Connor. It's great to be with you today. I'm excited.
Back at you, man. Just across the way, across the, I don't know, what do we call it in Florida? The stretch, the land, the peninsula, something on the other side of the peninsula to me. So yeah, it's great to have you here. And for people listening, where exactly are you in Florida?
I'm in the Jacksonville area, Northeast Florida.
Yeah. Give us a bit more, feel free to brag about yourself. I won't ding you for it. Most people hate talking about themselves, but I'm going to give you full permission to, I gave a little bit of your background, but what really led you into, where you're at in your life, your career today?
I would like to say it's some elaborate, crazy story where I had amazing opportunities and so forth. But ultimately, I answered a job posting for a healthcare IT consulting company that needed a RFP writer. So that was way back in 2005 for a company called Keen, who was later acquired by NTT Data. And I was with them for 10 and a half years and just, started there as an RFP writer in 2005 and slowly moved up the ladder. And by 2008-9, I was running the department and just kind of went from there. So it's been a wild ride. Healthcare IT is a very large, multi-billion-dollar industry, but it's also very niche. So it's large and it's small at the same time. It's fun because you learn something new every day. And I have built some amazing relationships in the industry, whether it's, at trade shows or organizations we're part of or something like that. But it's nice to, walk into a room and have people know who you are and come over and, shake your hand, give you a hug, and, sometimes tell you how proud they are.
Rub the top of your head a little bit for some good luck.
It is for good luck. Yeah, people do that occasionally. And even at a conference earlier this year, somebody walked up behind me as I was having a conversation and gave me this massive bear hug, and I had no idea who it was until I heard them speak. I'm like, oh, I know who that is. So yeah, this is, it's, I tell many people, when you get into your career, try to stay in the same industry because you can continue to grow. And for all the organizations from a marketing perspective that you're working on building your brand, you're also building your personal brand. And I'm pretty satisfied right now with the brand I built for myself because I'm actually known in the healthcare IT space as one of the top marketing executives, out there for what the work I've done. So
really pays off in dividends. And I think a lot of
it does.
speaking, especially to the younger generation, hops, jumps, skips around quite a bit from industry to industry, company to company. And not that that's bad early on to get kind of a flavor of what it is that you don't like, but doesn't mean when things get challenging, difficult. I'm sure you faced a lot of those scenarios over the year. You jump ship versus someone like you who's really dedicated, and you could almost go into any business with your time there in the consulting, marketing, build an agency around it, start your own. There's so many different avenues and paths when you're really, really focused in on a particular, area. And I'm sure it's got its challenges, but I'm sure it's got even greater benefits to that. Did you have like a mentor of your own who, any time where you're like, man, I don't know if I'm cut out for this, like this industry sucks. I'm sure you've gone through those things before. I just want to jump ship. Like, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, the gentleman who hired me back in 2005 very quickly became a mentor, almost like a second father to me. He really opened opportunities for me and spent a lot of time educating me and making sure I was meeting the right people, allowing me to make mistakes so that I could learn from those mistakes, allowing me to pick his brain and then allowing him to directly point me to the right people to get answers to those questions. Or in some cases, as I like to tell my wife sometimes, I'm not only paid to solve problems, but I'm also paid to create problems and then ultimately solve my own problems. And that comes from being curious and from asking questions and making mistakes and learning from those mistakes. And if I didn't have that gentleman, who unfortunately is now deceased, uh, give me that guidance, I don't think I would be where I am today without that.
Incredible. Talk a bit more, just for context, about what is Clearsense? What do you do specifically? And, some of those personas, influencers that you as a CMO are building relationships with, branding to, marketing to.
Certainly. So Clearsense is an organization that sells a data platform with analytics. And ultimately, what we are doing is making it easy for the average everyday business user to be able to access their data and use it against any use case that they're looking for and gain valuable insights from that, and then do many different things with that data, whether that is population health, whether that is predictive analytics, it could be research. Really, the use cases are infinite of what they can do with the data. And the key there is that we are able to bring in data from really any system that they have. Gives them a single pane of glass view of all of their data across all of their systems to really gain insights clinically, financially, and operationally. So, we work with anybody from the CEO, the CIO, the CFO, the chief data officer, VP of analytics, you name it. I mean, really, what we have found is even if we get into an organization having one conversation, because the use cases are almost infinite, they bring in people from all over the organization to have these conversations with us, because all of a sudden their eyes are getting open to everything they can do with the data once it's in our platform.
Which is a great thing about modern times. And the biggest pain of B2B sales in modern times is like almost double the decision makers of even 6-7 years ago that were showing these trends, coming up. And now that roughly about 65% in that buying market are millennials, Gen Z, kind of depending, you've probably seen some of that emerging over the years. What are, and this applies to, like, you're selling medical devices, IT, consulting, staffing, strategy into healthcare. What are the biggest mistakes initially that marketers are making when it comes to B2B healthcare marketing?
I think one of the bigger mistakes is not understanding the best way to reach your target market. In my introduction, you mentioned the HITMC Award that I received in 2020. That is an organization of healthcare IT marketers who come together to help each other, to educate each other on what's working and what's not working. And you combine that with the other organizations that we're part of, like as a sponsorship or something, our target market is telling us either directly through those organizations or that we're learning together as a group of healthcare IT marketers what works and doesn't work. So just because your organization sells a product, sells a service, sells consulting, it doesn't mean that your traditional marketing channels are going to work for that. So you have to understand through experience that, okay, I work for a staffing and consulting firm, for example. Maybe historically email marketing hasn't worked in that space because there are so many people in that space doing it. So maybe we don't do that. Maybe you make the mistake of wanting to do SMS marketing. I mean, I know I get annoyed when I get cold called left and right. Last thing I want is cold text messages from random people trying to sell me something.
Reply, stop to not receive. It's like, oh
Yep.
man.
Yep. So it's really learning.
And they brag about the open rates of it because of course you're going to get a text and look at it, but the downside of your brand showing up like that, like this is so invasive.
Yeah. It's understanding what works and what doesn't work. And we're selling a very modern, a very honestly cutting edge, maybe in some cases bleeding edge type of technology. But at the same time, when I'm trying to market or sell it, maybe I'm focused on more traditional, simple ways. Maybe I'm more advanced in my marketing, but it's understanding what's working, what's not working. And even as technology evolves, like we're about to be in a cookieless society when it comes to, web. So that's going to render email marketing even more worthless in some cases. And then you have first party cookies versus third party cookies, and all these different things keep happening. So marketers have to keep evolving and learning and educating themselves on what works and what doesn't work. And if you don't do that, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot and you're not going to be successful in what you're doing.
And you in particular, you go to your website and you're doing a lot of content, podcasts and interviews and video and articles. And I see a lot of other competitors in your space are selling into similar industries of, touting, oh, my business doesn't work like that. We fly out, we meet in person, which obviously, yes, that works, building relationships, doing conferences, all that good stuff. But what's the reasoning behind that? And kind of the thought of, even on the podcast side, like so many B2B marketers haven't really caught on to this media yet. I'm biased, obviously, we're doing this thing, but talk about that.
Yeah, and podcast in particular, we have been planning our podcast, what I feel like now is for 6 or 7 months. And just as busy as we are, we haven't had the opportunity to launch it yet. And we're on the cusp of starting to do our podcast, which is very exciting. I listen to several, not a lot, whether it's a pop culture type of podcast or business podcast.
And I'm honored that I'm at the top of your subscription list and your favorite
you're on the top
of all of them that you've listened to. So yeah.
And that is very true. I do subscribe and I do listen on a pretty regular basis, but in essence, depending on your, the scope of your business, content marketing really is the fuel that drives most businesses these days. And there's any number of different ways you can approach that, blog posts, case studies, infographics, a lot of press releases, podcasts, marketing videos, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that content is what establishes you as a thought leader in your space. So when someone comes and looks for a data and analytics platform, right, doing an organic Google search, you want your content to come up because, well, it's good stuff. We have smart people talking about it, and it's been SEO'd in such a way that, organically it comes up in those searches. So we focus a lot of time on content. And, again, look at the times right now, generative AI. We're taking full advantage of that tool to help us be faster in getting our content up by training a tool, in this case, ChatGPT, about who we are, teaching it our voice, and then prompting it with topics we want to write on, taking what it's giving us, running it through a plagiarism checker to make sure we're not plagiarizing anything. And then all of a sudden our time to draft is, cut down from a week to 30 minutes. And then turn around and customize that content to be specific to our company, in this case, Clearsense, and then publish it. So we're taking advantage of the technology now to create more content faster. And we just keep churning it out. My goal is one piece of fresh content a week, whether that is content that we create ourselves or if that's content through a sponsorship. So in this case, we recorded an interview with our chief technology officer at one show, our chief strategy officer at another show, through a sponsorship that we have. And those recently just published, and now we start promoting those. And it's, quick 15-minute video, but it's content we ultimately paid for, but is unique to us. And then we're able to take advantage of that. So every week we're publishing something new to the website, and having a website that is a good conduit to deliver that content is extremely important. So, the current Clearsense website went up last September, but right now we're in the midst of a huge content overhaul as we're expanding into some different areas that's going to bring a complete refresh to the look and feel of the website, and even deliver that content better than it does now.
And so with tools like AI, very hot topic, and the nuance of also getting social proof client, success stories, the voice and tone on video with your internal subject matter experts, how is AI, like, how are you using AI to enhance those efforts? And are you, further, and then are you doing most of this through your internal staff? Do you guys do hybrid? Do you do freelancers? Do you do vendors? Like, what's working for you in this case? And you're able to pull it off, which is awesome.
Yeah. So we do not outsource right now. I've built a very strong internal team that does a fantastic job of developing, base content that we then work with our subject matter experts to make it specific to our company. So no outsourcing, no third party whatsoever, at least right now. Now, as an organization grows, that may need to become necessary. I always use the analogy that I like to build a marketing team the way Bill Belichick builds a football team, is that everybody has a job to do, but if needed, that job can change and shift to cover something else. So I like to build a team that has some overlapping skill sets. So as the needs of the marketing organization change based on the business needs of the company, we're able to quickly pivot and shift and not have to worry about bringing in, a temporary firm or bringing in, something from some of those U-Hire or Up-Hire, I believe that's what the website's called. And so we just kind of, we roll with it, and as needs shift, we shift. And if my team needs to grow, which it did earlier this year when I had to add a second creative person because the creative needs of the organization basically rendered the one individual I had as a creative director, he was so far in the weeds with work, I needed to bring somebody else in to support him. And as we continue to have success as an organization, the team will grow. So, I'm potentially looking at adding an events coordinator next year because we're going to be adding more events to our schedule. And I can't expect the person who handles that now to be able to support all the additional events, plus her other work that she does in social media and various other places.
And folks, hang in here because we're going to dive deeper into the three pillars, but I want to riff on this because I think this is incredibly important and probably not something I should say given our business is built around supporting, B2B companies with content. But I am a firm believer if you can pull it off in-house the way that you've done it is a way that companies need to do it because, you know, that is where you're going to get the best in touch, in tune process, the flow. It's different. And yeah, obviously you can do it very successfully through vendors, to augment a lot of that stuff. But if you're able to develop that in-house team to pull it off, then that there's so much more power in that as well as control. And there's, nuances to both, but speak to that a little bit. What has been your key to success in mentoring your team, setting them up, especially on the content side, which is everything in, I like to say content's currency in B2B marketing nowadays, but that's the one thing most marketing teams are absolutely failing and struggling at. How have you been able to pull it off?
So one quick comment I'll make also about outsourcing versus doing it internally. Outsourcing ultimately costs you a lot more money because the organizations who are doing it in-house, their employees, the members of their team, ultimately become content experts of the company, understand who the company is, who the target market is, who they sell to, what the product is that you're selling. If you have to bring somebody external in to do it, like an agency or something, one, the amount of time that you get from them is dictated by the retainer that you pay them. So if you're paying, $5,000 a month, you may be getting a couple hours a month versus if you're paying $20,000 a month, you might get a dedicated person. So it's taking longer to get it when you outsource it. The person may be writing in generalities versus specific to your company. So that's the key, is educating yourself and your team on who you are, what you do, who you sell to, and focusing on that. Because then again, using technologies like ChatGPT, we've trained it, I should say my marketing director trained it to understand who we are and what we sell without giving it any IP, because right now you do not want to give ChatGPT any IP because then anybody has access to it. And that allowed us to start with the generalities and then make it specific to us. So I've been very adamant with my team. Don't just market for the sake of market, learn something new every single day. And my team has done that, and I'm very proud of them. I mean, I learn something new every single day, and I've been in the industry almost 20 years. So if I'm not learning something new in a general day, I really don't consider that day to be much of a success, because then I'm no different today than I was yesterday. And I've always been I'm a very ambitious person, and my wife will tell you the same exact thing. One of the things that attracted her to me when we started dating was that when I'm in a position, right, I look to do the best I possibly can in that position, but I'm always forward thinking. What do I have to do to make that next step to get where I want to be? And I apply that every single day to the work that I do. And that is learn, and ask questions, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. And I've made plenty. I'm not afraid to admit that I've made mistakes because I'm not perfect and no one ever is perfect. And I encourage my team to make mistakes because they learn from them.
So if your spouse is anything like mine, she loves the fact you're incredibly ambitious, but also is one of the biggest pains in their side is the fact that you're so incredibly ambitious. Get it? Same.
Exactly. Yeah.
Same situation.
Exactly.
So let's do this before we wrap up. High level, what are, and we chatted briefly on this the other day, those core pillars that that other marketers, executive leaders, business development executives, they need to understand from you, your experience, they can implement to master B2B healthcare marketing?
Well, obviously every single organization is different because you could be selling a product, you could be selling a service, you could be selling a combination of both. So my philosophy, I consider it to be very simple, but at the same time, it also can be very complex. So at Clearsense's position in the market and where we were, I looked at building up 3 pillars in order for us to be successful. And before we could start any marketing, these pillars had to be in place. First and foremost was a very robust website that really served two purposes. One, as I like to say, I like to have a robust and complex about us page. So people can come to your website and exactly learn who you are, what you do, what are your values, what's your mission, and really walk away just from that quick, 30-second, 60-second scan of that page, know who you are. And second, that website needs to be a strong conduit for delivering content. That's pillar number one. Pillar number two, in this case, because we're selling a product, which is a little bit more simpler to do with regards to pillar number two, which is marketing automation. We needed to have a strong system in place that allowed us to collect leads, nurture leads, understand where our leads are coming from, and be able to move them through the pipeline, get them to sales quicker, and so forth. And then for me, the third piece was always going to be a strong content creation program. That thought leadership, establishing yourself in the market as a thought leader in the area in which you sell is extremely important. So before we could even start marketing, as we were building the website, as we were implementing Pardot in this case for marketing automation, the third part of that was we were already developing 6 months worth of content topics and starting to work internally on those pieces of content. So when our website launched, that was the culmination, because the website had to talk to the marketing automation tool. And once the website and that marketing automation tool talk, then the information starts flowing as you publish your content and generating leads as it comes into your system, then you go from there. So for me at Clearsense, those three pillars were really the stepping stone for moving forward and being successful in the marketing program.
What's something you've held as a long-standing belief about these three pillars that maybe you've changed your mind about recently?
Probably the marketing automation piece, because there are so many different options out there between, Pardot, Marketo, HubSpot. Each one offers, and there's God knows how many other ones out there. Each one offers a unique piece, and none of them are perfect. There's always going to be a hole in that process, in that product, I should say, as you go through and build stuff out. So am I using Pardot out of the box the way I want to? No, I've hacked it. We had an implementation firm who helped us hack the system to do what we wanted to do. And that's where my opinions changed about it, because I wasn't necessarily comfortable doing that if I was going to hack it to do one thing and it was then not going to do another thing as well. And you have to continue to play with that system. And I've educated myself on, I just went to the Salesforce Connections conference last week and probably bought 5 or 6 things home for us to do to our Pardot system to make it better, so we can take it to the next step. So that area is where I think my opinions have changed quite a bit.
Awesome. Well, Larry, I can't thank you enough. Very grateful for you sharing your time, your wisdom. Welcome on the show anytime. I know we went around and there's a couple of things we weren't able to get to, so we'll have to dive into those on another time. But what is the best way for people to find you, follow you, get into contact with you?
Sure. On LinkedIn, you can find me under Lawrence Kaiser. Only my mother actually calls me Lawrence, but for business purposes, it's Lawrence Kaiser. And then you can find me on Twitter at Larry Kaiser. I'm there, pretty active on there. So if you want to find me, talk to me, whatever, reach out. That's where you can find me.
And then for everyone listening, are there any connections, relationships, resources, hires, anything that's super top of mind for you that you're looking for, connections for at this time?
Right now, I'm in the process of really just digging in again on the marketing automation piece. And I'm looking at, different pieces of tech that I can add to the stack in the future to see how we can do things better, whether that be, social or analytics on our own stuff. But from that point, that's really what I'm looking at, is just educating myself more on different tools I can tack on to what I already have for our marketing to be more efficient.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that and everything else, all the great insights. And for the rest of you listening, go make sure you follow, connect. Appreciate you tuning in. We have more guests coming your way, so make sure you are subscribed and share this, if not only for you. I guarantee you there's someone else in your network who's going to get great value out of this. Much love to you, my friends. Make it great, and we'll see you on the other side.